Good afternoon, everyone. No, the title uh, is not going to be deceiving here. True is my predictions for when every single game will be played and what channel they'll be on. So to start us off, week 1. Do you believe that the kickoff game will be the Bears at Seattle? So here's my reasoning as to why I think that. I think that like in 2023 when the Lions were in the kickoff game because they were the fun team to watch and whatever, putting them in a hostile environment, which the Lions ended up winning that game by 1 point. I think the same case is going to happen here. The Bears are the fun, up-and-coming team that just won the North. Putting them in a hostile environment like Seattle, I think, is going to be the most ideal move. Then we have this game, which I think will be the Sunday night game. Because why not? We started off in Green Bay last year. I don't think anything like that's going to change. We have Minnesota at New Orleans just because I had to add a 1 o'clock game in here somewhere. So I figured, why not? Moving on to week 2, I have the Jets at Detroit. Or in this case, the Aaron Glenn revenge game. I see someone like Iron Eagle or somebody calling this game because, simply put, they did that when we were at the Jets a few years ago. So I think that'll be the case. I have Buffalo visiting Minnesota, America's Game of the Week type of game. Because the last time these two teams met, back in 2022, it was a hell of a game. Offensive shootout, went into overtime. I could see Fox winning that as an America's Game of the Week game. Kyler Murray against Josh Allen, 2 mobile quarterbacks. I can see Fox winning that as an America's Game of the Week game. Then we have Tampa Bay visiting Chicago because I get to give Chicago a 1 o'clock game in here somewhere. Why not have Tampa Bay visit them in week 2? Then for the Monday night game, I have Atlanta visiting Green Bay. Simply because Michael Penix against Jordan Love, 2 young quarterbacks. And I feel like ESPN would love to have that as a game somewhere, so I figured, why not? Week 3, I have Minnesota visiting the Niners. Look, I gotta have somewhat of a... well, I'm not gonna say it's gonna be a boring game. Honestly, if they really want to, I could see this being the Mexico City game, but I don't think it's going to be. But I do see that being a late game. Once again, Kyler Murray visiting NFC West grounds, but specifically Levi Stadium. I see CBS potentially wanting that as a late game, like Kevin Harlan calling this game or something, since I think Nance Romo will do the international game in this week. Then I have Detroit visiting Carolina, Monday Night Football. You got the Carolina Panthers, young, again, another young up-and-coming team. Got Detroit, been relatively competitive for a few years now. I see that as a Monday night game. And then I have Green Bay visiting the Bears on Sunday night. The three matchups between these teams last year, all competitive. I see one of those matchups being a Sunday night game of the week. Monday night, like something along those lines. So I figured, why not make that a Sunday night game? Then we move on to week 4, where I have Washington visiting Minnesota. This is one of those placement games. Since Minnesota finished in third, they get whoever else finished in third place, which in this case was the Washington Commanders. I just have that as a basic 1 o'clock game, though it could be game of the week or something, prime time if needed. Because again, 2 mobile quarterbacks. The world could see that if they really wanted to. But, that being said, I do have Detroit visiting Chicago on a Thursday night game, fairly early in the season this year. Let me explain this one. You got Ben Johnson against Dan Campbell, round 3. Second matchup was America's Game of the Week game last year, only because of the Bears, not anything to do with the Lions, because the Lions were eliminated from playoff contention the week before. But I do see one of those matchups as well being a primetime game of the week sort of thing. And then I have Green Bay visiting the Jets. Simple 1 o'clock game. Green Bay is going to have a couple 1 o'clock games here. Figured that is probably going to be the case. Then we move on to week 5. We have New Orleans visiting Detroit. I have that as a CBS game only because I feel like the Lions are going to have like a random NFC opponent once or twice as a CBS game, because it's been, I don't know how long it's been since the Lions have had an NFC opponent on CBS. Oh wait, Thanksgiving 2024 we had the Bears on CBS. I think that they'll get New Orleans on CBS for some reason. Not really a specific reason, but I do think that'll be a 1 o'clock game. Then I have the Falcons visiting Minnesota. 1 o'clock game here as well. I have that as it's a 1 o'clock game. Then I have Buffalo visiting Green Bay in the 4 o'clock window. Josh Allen against Jordan Love, 2 playoff teams. I feel like CBS is going to want that as a late game. Then I have New England visiting the Bears as the Monday night game. I could see that being a Monday night game or something like a Sunday night game or something. I see this as a primetime game. Again, 2 young quarterbacks, 2 playoff teams from last year. Got year 2 Ben Johnson against year 2 in New England, Mike Vrabel. Not going over any scandals or stuff with him. But I feel like somebody like NBC or ESPN is going to want that as a primetime game. Then, moving on to week 6, I have Carolina at Minnesota being the Thursday night game of this week. Only because, and let me explain why here. The only reason I see this as a primetime game, Minnesota's got to have a Thursday night game at some point in the season. And again, Carolina, who just won the South last year, is, I think, going to have a little more primetime games than they did this year. So I feel like that's going to be a primetime game. Next up, we have what I think will be the Monday night game, Detroit at Atlanta. Once again, I think this would be a year 3 Michael Penix against Jared Goff. Dan Campbell against Stefanski is, I think, the head coach now. I feel like that'll be a primetime game for some reason. Then I have the Bears visiting Minnesota. This is one where I feel like the prediction could be wrong here. I'm not going to switch it. I'm not going to switch the prediction, but I feel like it's probably going to be wrong. I do feel like that has primetime potential as well. Because you got, I don't know what Super Bowl it was. Or, I don't think they ever matched up in a Super Bowl, did they? I don't think they did. But that could have the potential of being a primetime game for some reason. I don't think it's going to be, but it's got potential. We have Green Bay at New England. Same reasoning as New England at Chicago. And two young-ish quarterbacks. Jordan Love isn't necessarily a young quarterback. Kind of is, but not really at the same time. I feel like that's got the potential to be a primetime matchup as well. Then we move on to week 7. Miami at Green Bay has the most obvious primetime potential. Let me explain why. Malik Willis revenge game. Jeff Hafley revenge game. Technically, their GM came from Green Bay as well. Against Green Bay. Literally the team that let Malik Willis walk into free agency and sign with the Dolphins. If that is not the most obvious primetime potential ever, I don't know what is. But I do have that as a Monday night game. And then I had Minnesota at Detroit just being just a random 1 o'clock game. I feel like both of those are going to be 1 o'clock games, which is a little boring, but I don't really care. And let me explain what this yellow highlighted thing is. That means I think that team will have a bye week in that week. I think the Bears bye week will be week 7. Once again, it varies depending on the team. I'll explain where I put the Lions bye week and why I put it there when I get down there, which will be real shortly. Week 8. I have Detroit at Buffalo as a primetime game. Same reasoning as Minnesota being a 4:25 game on CBS against Buffalo. The last time these two teams met, back in 2024, it was an absolute shootout of a game between these two teams. I think it was 48-42 when they met back at Ford Field in week 15 of 2024. I feel like NBC or CBS or Amazon or ESPN ABC is going to want that matchup as a primetime game. Oh yeah, I didn't for a Fox if they really wanted that as a game of the week game. Which in this case it would be a Fox game of the week game. Only if we're following a specific pattern, which I think we are in this case. I feel like one of those major networks is going to want that as a huge national game. And again, first year in Buffalo's new stadium, I feel like that will be a huge game here. Yes, I did predict the Vikings bye week in week 8. Whether or not that's true remains to be seen. I have New Orleans at Chicago. I decided to calm it down a little bit with Chicago's primetime slate here. Once again, I did the same thing in week 9 with them. But going back to who I have Green Bay playing in this week, I have them playing Carolina. I don't actually have that as a game of the week game, but there is the potential that is a game of the week game. I don't have it as such right now, but I could see it being the case. Then in week 9, I have the Packers on a bye week. I have Detroit playing Miami in a late window game. And similar reasonings stand here, where obviously I have Obviously, Jeff Hafley, Malik Willis, that sort of thing would still stand here. Minnesota playing Chicago in a 1 o'clock game, because why not? Week 10, I have Green Bay playing the Rams in a Sunday night game. I do feel like that'll be a huge game some point in the season, so I figured, why not? Then I have Chicago playing Buffalo in a late window game. Again, two huge elite quarterbacks. I feel like Fox, CBS, somebody's going to want that as a featured game. Then I have Minnesota playing New England in a 1 o'clock game. I know it feels boring, but I feel like Minnesota is going to have a couple 1 o'clock games here. Figured, why not? Then I have this. I have the Giants playing Detroit over in Munich. Here's the reason why. Giants have marketing rights over in Germany. They're one of the opponents the Lions play. So, I feel like the Giants are going to be playing in Germany against the Lions. Which leads me into the next point here. Taking us into week 11, I would then have the Lions on a bye week. Whenever the Lions international game is, which that does not get announced until Wednesday, by the way, I'll explain when every single announcement is in just a moment here. Or once I get done here, I'll explain when a lot of things get announced. But whenever the Lions international game is, their bye week will be the week after. So, say if it's like week 6 or something, their bye week would be in week 7. So, for my predictions, if the international game is in week 10, the Lions' bye week would be in week 11. Moving on to the next games here, we have Indy. I'm predicting Indy's going to visit Minnesota. 1 o'clock window on CBS. I mean, yeah, you have Daniel Jones visiting Minnesota, where he was the practice squad quarterback in the 2024 season. I think he was the backup. I don't think he was the practice squad quarterback. But he was on that roster in the 2024 season after getting released by the Giants. There is some storylines there, but I feel like that's just going to be a boring game there. And then we have Chicago visiting Green Bay in the late window. Once again, storyline set up here. I just feel like that'll be the case. Week 12, Houston at Green Bay. I feel like it's going to be a huge game here. So I figured I'd make that a featured game. And then I have the Jets visiting Chicago, clock on CBS, and Detroit visiting Minnesota, 1 o'clock CBS. Obviously, boring game here. Jets visiting Chicago. Aaron Glenn visiting Chicago for the first time since becoming the Jets head coach. Assuming he's not fired by this point, that is a storyline there. Week 13, I'll explain what this orange thing is here. Actually, I am going to come back to that. So I'll move on to week 14 for now. I'll come back to week 13 at the end here just to explain what choices I've made there. I have Detroit visiting Arizona. Once again, another placement game. 4:25 over on Fox. I don't think that'll be a game of the week game, but it could be. I have Chicago visiting Atlanta. 1 o'clock on CBS. Dallas visiting Green Bay, which will actually connect with week 13, so I will come back to that as well. And then I have Miami visiting Minnesota, 1 o'clock on CBS. I'll come back to week 14 and 13. discussing this and why I think that that'll end up there. Week 15. I have Tennessee visiting Detroit, 1 o'clock on CBS. Green Bay visiting Tampa Bay, 1 o'clock on Fox. Minnesota visiting the Jets, 1 o'clock on CBS. And then Philly visiting Chicago, 8 as the Sunday night game that week. Here's the reason why I think that will be the case. The reason why I think that is because, simply put, I do believe, and you have Saquon Barkley against that Chicago defense, Chicago's weapons against Philly's defense, vice versa. Once again, you got 2 division winners here. So I feel like NBC or one of the major networks is going to want that as a featured game at some point in the season. Then we move on to week 16. Yes, I do have Chicago visiting Minnesota on a Monday night for the 3rd year in a row. 3rd or 4th, I don't really remember. But I do feel like that'll be the case again. I have Green Bay visiting New Orleans at 1 o'clock on Fox. And then I have this game, Tampa Bay visiting Detroit in the 8:20 as the Sunday night game. Here's why I think that. Again, old division rivals. Tampa Bay was in the NFC Central before it became the North. Teams have matched up quite a few times recently. And I feel like NBC or ESPN is going to want that as a featured game. So, why not? Week 17. I have Minnesota visiting Tampa Bay. 1 o'clock window over on Fox. I did give the Bears another Monday night game visiting Carolina. Because why not, I guess. Once again, division winner, that sort of thing. Still applies there. And I have Green Bay visiting Detroit. I don't think it'll be a Saturday game. I don't know why I have that there. But I do feel like that'll be a 1 o'clock game. Then we have the final week of the season before I go back to week 13 and 14. I have Chicago visiting Detroit, Minnesota visiting Green Bay. Basically a reversal of where they ended up last year, because Detroit visited Chicago and Green Bay visited Minnesota. So I feel like it'll be reversed this year. It could be different. I don't really know. Then, coming back to week 13, here's what I have here. I have New England visiting Detroit in the first Thanksgiving game. Yes, the orange does mean it's a holiday game. So let me explain that. Just to explain that, the orange is the holiday games, which does mean Thanksgiving here. Then, yes, I know Dallas is not technically NFC North here, but I did want to include their game in here. Just include all 3 Thanksgiving games. So I either have here Philly visiting Dallas or Jacksonville visiting Dallas. And those explanations are really simple. Philly visiting Dallas on Thanksgiving has not happened since 2014, I believe. Or I don't really remember what year it was, but it's been a while since Philly has visited Dallas on Thanksgiving. And I do feel like that'll be a game that winds up there. The other option I have here, which is less likely to happen, but could still happen, is Jacksonville visiting Dallas on Thanksgiving. Dallas gets that whole division this year, and the only team to never play on Thanksgiving, yes, Carolina has played on Thanksgiving once, though. The only team to never play on Thanksgiving is Jacksonville. Coincidentally, moving on to the last slate of games here, I have Jacksonville visiting Chicago on Thanksgiving. Because again, same reasoning. But there was also another layer to this where, again, two young up-and-coming teams, two up-and-coming quarterbacks, two playoff teams, two division winners. All those reasons apply. Or I could have Green Bay visiting Chicago, divisional rivalry, that sort of thing. Those are just the options here. If this game gets chosen, which I'm not sure is very likely, but it could happen, if that game gets chosen, then I have Green Bay visiting Minnesota in the 425 window. If this game gets chosen, then I have the Vikings on their bye week here, moving Green Bay's game somewhere else. Green Bay's game against Minnesota somewhere else. Probably here. Means I would move this game somewhere else. It all depends on what the NFL wants to do. Now that takes me into my next point here. Which is this. Just ignore the part on the right side of the screen. Only focus on that left side of the screen here. So this is when every single network reveals everything. So there is going to be leaks before the actual schedule release here. So on Monday, 2 days from now, you'll have NBC and Peacock reveal select games. This does include the kickoff game. So, whoever Seattle gets in the kickoff game gets revealed there. Fox will reveal some big games, some America's Game of the Week games in specific weeks. Then Amazon will do the same thing with some Thursday night games, maybe also the Black Friday games. One of the Black Friday games, because I think Netflix might be doing the other one. I know that there is potential for a Thanksgiving Eve game. We don't know how any of this is going to look yet until Thursday, but this is just some stuff before that fact. Then we have Disney with ESPN reviewing some Monday night games on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, you'll have the NFL Network reveal the full slate of international games. Recall that I said that the Lions would be playing an international game this season in Germany. Wednesday, we'll know exactly who they'll be playing for this international game. Then we'll have Netflix revealing some other games, probably the week 1 game between the Rams and San Francisco, which is rumored to be on Netflix. The Christmas games and probably the quote-unquote Thanksgiving Eve game. Then we have YouTube revealing some things themselves, which I don't know exactly what they'll be revealing, but they will be revealing something. Then the last thing here, Thursday, is anything that's not been revealed will be revealed, along with the team's full schedule and the preseason. Now, the last point that I want to read here is that CBS has already held its upfront presentations, but will still reveal additional matchups and information on CBS mornings, similar to last year. I'm not going to highlight the actual times here. All times are in EST, so living in the Pacific time zone or Mountain time zone, Central time zone. I'm sure you can figure out what those times actually are, or anywhere else in the world who may watch my videos, because I do see that information. You guys can watch that, translate those times and watch that on whatever specific network, because the networks aren't exactly the same when it comes to this information. But that'll take me into my last thing that I want to say here before I wrap this video up. Thursday or Friday, I don't know when. It'll be after the schedule release occurs. I will make a reaction video with all 32 team schedule release videos and potentially doing a tier list from the greatest ones to the worst ones that I see. So keep a lookout for that. With that being said, did you enjoy this video, me revealing my channel predictions? Just note as well that I do also have a document and picks for the NFL season, just of who I think is going to win. You guys would like to see that? Comment down below if you're interested in seeing that. Other than that, that's all I have to say. Until then, I'm going to edit this video in the best way I possibly can. And see you at the headquarters.